Hello guys, so today I'm going to share with you some really interesting knowledge that I discovered. So what I have here is a scene that I created a long time ago, which has nine fully clothed characters and quite a large file size if saved uncompressed. Now, why am I showing you this? Well, the reason is that I recently bought a hard drive. In particular, I bought a Western Dig Black SN850X NVMe drive, and which you can see here. And the reason I bought it is I was currently running off this Samsung Evo Plus, which when I bought it was considered to be one of the faster NVMe drives, with a transfer rate of 3,300 megs per second. And I was hoping to start using Poser's autosave feature. But the trouble is that this file is over a gigabyte in size, as you can see here. So it's called the new normal. And PZ3 is the default Poser file format, uncompressed format, over a gigabyte. So I usually save compressed because I just old habits die hard, and I was thinking about saving file space, hard drive space. So the compressed size of the same file is 295 megabytes, which is what, almost a quarter of the size, yeah, 25% the size. So what I wanted to do was start using. So if I click Edit and then go up to General Preferences, and you'll see here is an option called Autosave, and I'll explain first of all how this works, and then I'll explain the absolutely shocking information that I discovered. So when you create a scene, the first time you save it, that then creates a directory here, an autosave directory. And I wanted to find out where they were, so I contacted Poser, Bondware, and John very kindly came back to me the same day and explained to me that the autosave file is saved in the same directory as the place the file is itself. So it creates this folder here. So the PZ3 is in there, and then it's got the version numbers of your autosave and the base file here. And so when you create a scene, such as this one, I recommend that the first thing you do is save the scene with no characters in it, because then that will also create an autosave. And then you can define how many seconds after creating that it will also save the autosave. So I suggest 10 seconds because the scene will be empty and it takes no time to save. And then an interval of 5 minutes after that, and however many versions you want for a feeling of safety. And you can manually load those autosaves. But here's the thing. If for any reason Poser crashes, which it does frequently, then when you go to reload your last version of the file, which won't be probably shown in recent files because when it crashes, it forgets that stuff often. When you go to load your file, if the previous version wasn't saved properly, what it will do is it will compare the date stamps on the autosave to the last properly saved version. And if the autosave is more recent, it will then give you the option to load the last autosave. So you can see that if you have an interval of 5 minutes, then that would mean that you never lose more than 5 minutes work. And if you've ever lost a file, you'll know that inspiration often doesn't come twice. You might create something and you'd be really happy with it, and then the program crashes and you never quite get back to where you were. So the reason that I've not used autosave in the past was because of file sizes. And in the past, I've been running off Western Dig Black, 4 terabyte Western Dig Black, which is a 7200 RPM hard disk drive. And even though 72 RPMs fast as drives go, it's not the fastest. They come in 10 and 15k, excuse me, 10 and 15,000 RPM as well, so they're much faster. But for consumer drives, it's considered to be one of the faster ones. And it has a transfer rate of 202 megabytes per second. Now, as I say, I was running off this Samsung drive, this Samsung 970 Evo, which is my boot drive, and that has a transfer rate of up to 3,500 megs per second. So compare 202 megs for the hard drive against 3,500 megs there. That was already pretty quick, but I thought if I get the fastest drive I could afford, which would be this 850X, which is this is a third gen NVMe. This is a fourth gen NVMe, and it has a transfer rate of 7,300 RPM. Not RPM. 7,300 megs per second. So I hoped that it would be quick enough to save files and even quite large files and not notice. And what made me have that hope was that there's a game I play called Dying Light 2, which in the past was taking on my Western Dig drive, was taking probably 3 minutes to load, and then as soon as I put that NVMe in, the fast one, it loaded almost instantly. So I was hoping for similar performance with Poser. But what I did was I did some test saves, and this is where the really fascinating thing comes in, and it really, really revealed something important. What I did was I test saved with and without file compression, and as you see, the file with compression is 295 megs. The file without compression is almost 4 times as large. So you would think almost 4 times as large, almost 4 times as long to save. But the really, really fascinating thing is that it wasn't. This took 36 seconds to save, the larger file, and the smaller one took, let me just have a quick look. 123 seconds, so 3 times as long to save the smaller file. And then the really interesting thing was I saved them again onto the Western Digital hard drive, which only has a transfer rate of 202 megs per second. And the save times were almost exactly the same. Much quicker, 36 seconds for the uncompressed version and 123 for the compressed version. And what that tells you is that the majority of saving time is compression time. So the actual file can be saved in less than 36 seconds. And why do I say less than 36 seconds? Because it takes some time to compile the scene to save. And how do I know that? Because when you load this scene back in, no matter where you load it, whether it's compressed or not, it takes orders of magnitude longer to save. Well, not orders of magnitude, but this scene could be saved in 36 seconds, but the quickest I could load it was 208 seconds. So whatever that is, 8 times longer, something like that. And what that reveals to me is that when you save, the 36 seconds is the scene compilation time. Basically, it compiles it in memory, and then it can save in the background. But when you load it, it can't load in the background. You have to load the full scene before you can start to work on it. So you see the true amount of time it takes to reassemble the scene. So two interesting things come from that. One is that, let me go back to my original saves here. One is that in the past, you may have balked at the idea of saving uncompressed files. This is basically a zip version of compression, and Poser uses its own version of zip. It doesn't hook into the regular zip and then just do that in the background. It actually does some internal version of zip, which means that you can't use Poser until it's zipped and saved. So if you're auto saving this, that means that you've got 3 minutes to wait this is a large scene. It's got nine fully clothed figures. So basically, each item of clothing you could imagine to be equivalent to another figure. So every figure's got at least two items of clothing. Some have got three, but let's just say two for the average. So the figures plus two items of clothing. So that's equivalent to 27 figures worth of stuff, plus well over 100 flowers in the background. Um, Plus these bikes and skateboards and stuff like that. So and hair on every single character as well, which is really occupies a lot of memory. So the time it takes Poser to assemble that and then compress it is what takes up the real time, not the amount of time it takes to physically save on your hard drive. So in the past, a 1 GB file, if you were saving 10 or 15 of them, or you had a library of Poser saves where you might have 50 different saves of different files, you might have bulked at 50 files. But nowadays, when you can buy 22 terabyte hard drives, I think on this machine I've probably got, I don't know, 30, 50 terabytes, something like that, spread between different drives and external drives. So nowadays, storage space is cheap. And another interesting thing is that zip compression is a factor of your processor. Now, I'm not sure whether zip, particularly Poser's version of zip, uses multiple threads. So, for example, if I look at my processor here, I'm running an AMD Ryzen Threadripper 3960, which has 24 cores, 48 threads. So if zip used all 48 threads, that would be really excellent, but I'm fairly certain it doesn't, not Poser version anyway. So the important factor here is the frequency at which the processor runs, which is this number, 3.82 gigahertz. And with the new generation of Intel processors and maybe even soon the new Ryzen ones, AMD ones, sorry, that they don't have as many cores, but they have a much faster frequency. So if zip is single threaded or just dual threaded, for example, this number here will be, 4.95, even 6 gigahertz. I don't know what speed the new processors go up to, but that is the number that's going to determine how fast it zips. Not the speed of your GPU, not the number of cores, but this frequency here. So it's better off not to depend on that, because that is going to be for compression speed. Better off, far better, now that storage is so cheap, to save uncompressed. If you can save on a admittedly state-of-the-art NVMe, but if you can save 1 GB more than in 36 seconds and continue working, 36 seconds is a small price to pay in terms of productivity. If you set your autosave here, if you set your autosave, say, to 15 minutes instead of 5, then that really isn't, 36 seconds every 15 minutes as compared to losing the whole scene and having to spend hours or days rebuilding it is nothing, is it? And then you set the number of versions you want just to have safety. So I did 30, but probably realistically I should have probably just set that to 5 or 10. And there you go, guys. That's a really interesting piece of information where I think now that autosave is usable, you should be thinking in terms of saving uncompressed at all times if you want to make the best use of that autosave. Obviously, if you have very slow storage or very poor processors, then that might need reevaluating. But the thing is, if you've got a reasonably good processor and hard drive, give it a try. See how it works out for your stuff. Anyway, guys, hopefully you find that useful. And that was a bit weird. Hopefully you found that useful. And I will speak to you again later.